So, I am here tonight with my young former professor of philosophy from Mountain View College, Debbie Nichols. Debbie, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
It's a pleasure. It's so good to see you
Good to see
again.
you too. So, the reason I invited you tonight is because we're doing some training at the college, and I talked about you. And so, about validation theory. We're doing training about validation theory, and I mentioned you in our story, and so I wanted to interview you a little bit and ask you a few questions about kind of how you do things in the classroom, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, my first question to you is, when I was in your class, the thing that struck me the most is that you call me by name, and early on, you call me by name. You would say, Terry, and you would ask a question, or you would give me positive affirmation, and you would praise if I said something right, and maybe if I said something sort of right, you would still praise me at times. Is that something you do? I mean, when you engage students in the classroom, are there practices that you tend to use, that you address students by name, or that you engage them in certain ways?
Well, I do think names are very important, and obviously that's more difficult with the greater and greater numbers of students that we're all being asked to teach. I do teach some classes that are so big that that's really, really difficult. But then if I call on them for something, I will say, okay, wait, remind us of your name. And I will make sure that I work that name into the conversation that that student and I then have. In smaller classes, obviously, we just work harder on it. And I really like to use people's last names,
Mm-hmm.
like Miss So and so or Mr. So and so, because I'm not really sure the young students have been honored or respected in the way of being called Miss or Mrs.,
Interesting.
whatever. Um, but last names are harder than first names, so that's even more of a challenge.
But I would say too, last names are more differentiating at times because you might
Oh,
have three or four Sarahs in one class, so that's probably a really good strategy.
yeah.
When you would ask questions of me, I remember at times you would ask me, you would even include my background in some questions, and I'm sure it's been so many years. I'm not putting you on the spot. I would never do that. It's been about 18 years since I was
Yeah,
in your class, so
probably.
it's been a long time. But you would ask me questions, and you would frame those questions often. Like, I remember telling you I was in the military, and once we were discussing metaphysics, I think, and you framed a question to me using my military background. And I remember thinking, wow, she really kind of considers what I bring as a student to the table, I guess, valuable. Is that something you try to do in your classes? Do you try to target the student's background if you happen to know it in the way you ask questions?
I do try to, and I never really thought of it as some particular principle of validation. It just seems to me to be polite to listen to what people say and to use that in, just polite conversation with them. But I did have a professor of my own once. Isn't that where most of us
Sure.
learned how to do what we do, right? And he did that. He treated each of us like we were experts at something, and I remember how engaged it made me feel and how engaged it made me want to be, that he respected me enough to know who I was and to incorporate what I was good at into the class. So, yeah, I suppose I have tried to fold that in with students.
Interesting. So he to you, and now you to me,
That's
right? And then
how we
maybe
do
some
it,
of my
isn't it?
students will call me one day and tell me I did the same thing. I hope so. That's my goal.
I think you can count on it because, by all accounts, you are an excellent teacher, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. And lastly, at Mountain View,
Uh-huh.
do you feel like it? There are times where you are engaging, validating, engaging, recognizing, acknowledging students outside the classroom as well as inside. Do you see them at cultural events? Do you see them at different campus events? And do you approach them and talk to them? And do you feel like that's an important part of your teaching philosophy and strategy to do those kind of things.
Sure. And I don't necessarily just think of it as a teaching strategy. I just think of it as being human with other human beings, you know? I don't know of anybody in the world who doesn't need validation. Maybe there are a few people, I haven't met them yet, but I sure need validation. And so to have somebody take an interest in me, ask me questions about me, I think it's just grown up human courtesy, and it's teaching our younger students how to be grown ups and be courteous and care about other people. So even though I'm an introvert and I don't necessarily like just walking up to people at a cultural event or someplace at the mall if I see them, sure. I mean, it's just a good uh, grown up thing to do. And I think part of it is that I don't just think of myself as a teacher, but as a mentor. And we can't mentor all of our students. We have too many. So we can't make that a really close relationship with that many of them. And so maybe not that many would say that I'm a mentor. But for the 30 seconds I'm with them, I'm going to be a mentor.
It's wonderful.
Even if I can't remember their names, I want to reacquaint myself and try to serve that function in their lives.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, those are the three questions I wanted to ask you, and I really appreciate you taking time. I have two things I want to show you. Hold on
Oh,
a second.
great,
So
great,
one
great.
is this. One is this. So I always get a kick out of this when students show me this. This is my philosophy book. See, you know you love a
Oh
professor's
my
class when you keep their
goodness.
philosophy book. So that's exhibit one. That's my philosophy book from your
I haven't
class.
used that book in so long.
And I still read it from time to time. And
Too.
this doesn't have a
Okay.
title. You can't see this book. It's just plain. But this book is my PhD dissertation. Now, here's the thing. The reason I show
Oh,
it to you is because I don't think I could have this without this
oh
and
wow,
without
it's kind
you.
of like before and after.
So, thank you for validating me. Thank you for being such a great professor to me. I appreciate
Uh,
it.
it is my pleasure and my pleasure to see you doing that for other people now.
Thanks, Debbie. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, I stopped.